This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem. Bruchim Abam. Today's Shiur is in honor of the putting on of tefillin of A.B. Goldberg. And Mazel Tov to his dear parents, Mr. and Mrs. Ian Goldberg. They should be zeicha to raise A.B. l'Torah, l'chuppah, l'masim tovim. Also, the learning should be Leila Nishmas, my grandfather, whose yahrzeit is tonight, Shimon Yehoshua ben Shmuel Yaakov. The pasuk says in Amos, everyone have a sheet? Everyone have a sheet? Yeah? Okay. The pasuk says like this, Aryeh shag mila yira. If the lion roars, who is not afraid? Imagine if, you were lying in bed and you heard a noise. So what was that? Am I dreaming? And you open up your eyes, and there's a lion in your room. You probably would be very frightened. If the lion roars, who is not afraid? Says the Shlach HaKadosh that the early authorities, they give a remez. Aryeh is a Rashi Tevos, an acronym that stands for Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hoshana Rabbah. Aryeh, Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hoshana Rabbah. That's the remez brought down by the Shlach HaKadosh. The Matei Moshe, who is a student of the Marshal, he also brings this remez. Aryeh is Rosh Tevos Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hoshana Rabbah. Aryeh. By the way, another interesting remez to Elul is Lulei He'emanti L'Reis B'to Hashem. In Chodesh Elul we say L'David Hashem Oyer V'Yishi, and in L'David we say Lulei, Lulei, Lulei spelled. By the way, that the word Lulei is the only word in Tanakh that has dots in it on top of the word and on bottom of the word. We know in the Chumash there are certain words that have dots only on the top. Hanistarois L'Hashem Elokeinu, or Vayishakehu. Lulei is the only word in the whole Tanakh that has dots on top and on the bottom. That indicates that we read it backward. Lulei is Rashi Tevos Elul. The Baal HaTurim says, from Elul and on, Charadati neged Hashem. I am in awe, reverence, fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, the minhag is to get up early, to say Slichas from Rosh Chodesh and on. That's why we appoint our brothers, the Bnei Sfarad, to get up, and they're moitzi us in this chiyuv of getting up early for Elul. And as a reward, they get to eat kidneyos on Pesach. And Ashkenazim say, we're meichel the kidneyos, and we get some extra sleep. No. But really you're supposed to get up early, beginning Rosh Chodesh Elul, and this is derived from the word Lulei. Lulei spelled backward is Elul. Now we encounter two things. Number one, when we talk about the lion, everybody knows we're fearful on Hoshana Rabbah. We're fearful on Yom Kippur. We're fearful on Rosh Hashanah. But why are we afraid on Elul? What happens on Elul that we're afraid? What's scary about Elul? I understand Rosh Hashanah we're judged. Yom Kippur is a day of judgment. Hoshana Rabbah is a day of judgment. But why are we afraid on an Elul? What are we scared of? Why is Chodesh Elul counted as one of the fearsome days of the year? What happens on Elul? If anything, we know that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur we don't say Hallel because there are days of Tshuva, the Rambam says. There are days of Yira, there are days of Pachad, and not Simcha Yisera. But Elul is not a frightening day. What happened on Rosh Chodesh Elul? Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai to get the second Luchos. Why did he go up on Rosh Chodesh Elul? He went up on Rosh Chodesh Elul because these are days of Rachamim. These are days of Ratzain. Like we said on Shabbos, that the Elul is alluded to in Ani L'Doidi V'Doidi Li. What are the next words? Haroyeh B'Shoishanim. That Elul is compared to a rose. The Zohar HaKadosh teaches a rose has 13 petals, corresponding to Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. So during the month of Elul, the Midah of Midas Harachamim is prevalent. So I understand Rosh Hashanah is part of the lion. Yom Kippur is part of the lion. Hoshana Rabbah is part of the lion. But why is Elul part of the lion? Elul is not a frightening time. Elul is a time of Rachamim, is a time of Ratzain. The Noid of Yehuda himself asks, Elul is not part of the Yimei Hadin. Even the days of Slichos before Rosh Hashanah, they're not days of Din, they're days of Rachamim, they're days of Ratzain. So why is Elul part of the lion? The lion should not start, the roar should not start until Rosh Hashanah. Why does the Baal HaTurim say from Rosh Chodesh and on, Charadati neged Hashem, Elul, Shemei Elul ve'ela charadati neged Hashem. Why are we afraid in Elul? We're happy in Elul. So you would say, simply, we're not afraid in Elul because of something that's happening in Elul. We're afraid in Elul because of the impending din on Rosh Hashanah. It's not that there's something inherently fearsome and frightening about Elul. It's that we're afraid in Elul because of what's impending in 30 days from now. You know, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter writes, if you look on your sheet in number 12, he says, I remember in the days of yore, Kol ish achazoi palotzus mikoil hakoire kadosh Elul. People used to be gripped with palotzus when they heard Rosh Chodesh Elul. People used to be gripped with palotzus. Does anybody know, what does the word palotzus mean? It's a pasuk in Yeshaya. Ta'a levavi, my heart was astrayed. Palotzus biasasni. Palotzus, the Malbim says, convulsion. Palotzus means convulsions. People literally had a physiological reaction when they heard the words Rosh Chodesh Elul. It created a physiological response where a certain anxiety would strike when you heard the word Elul. Rabbi Yerucham Oshen quotes, there's a Sefer Kadosh Elul that they said about Rabbi Yisrael Salanter that once he heard the word Rosh Chodesh Elul, his musaf on Shabbos already, after he heard the announcement of Chodesh Elul, he would be trembling already. His musaf was a different musaf. They say a story about the Chafetz Chaim. Somebody once came to Dam with the Chafetz Chaim on Shabbos Mevarchim Elul. And when the Chazan said, Rosh Chodesh Elul, the Chafetz Chaim began to shake and he broke out in very powerful tears, and awe struck the whole tzibur. He brings there that Rav Moshe Aaron Stern, the Mashgiach of Kamenetz, heard from Rav Yosef Salant that when he was a young man, he davened Mevarchim Elul together with the great tzaddik, Rabbi Yitzchak Blazer, Rabbi Itzla Petterberg. Rabbi Itzla Petterberg was one of the three primary disciples of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. I had the zchus to be at the kever of Rabbi Itzla Petterberg many times on Har HaZeisim. I had the zchus to be in the by the house of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter in Yerushalayim on Rehov Strauss. When the story goes that Rabbi Itzla Petterberg, the Chafetz Chaim brings, did not speak from Rosh Chodesh Elul until after Yom Kippur. He was B'tainas Dibur from Rosh Chodesh Elul until after Yom Kippur. So they invited him to be the Shliach Tzibur for Birchas HaChodesh. And when he said, Rosh Chodesh Elul yeh b'yoyim hachamishi u'machrasa b'yoyim hashishi, he broke out in tears. The whole Tzibur joined him bevechi and crying. They say that one time the Belzer Rebbe, by Shabbos Mevarchim Elul, all of his limbs were shaking. And the question is, why? What happens on Rosh Chodesh Elul? I understand Rosh Hashanah is Yom Adin. I understand Yom Kippur is the Day of Judgment. I understand Hoshana Rabbah. But what's happening on Rosh Chodesh Elul? So again, simply it's because of the impending judgment. But it seems from the fact that the Rishonim grouped together Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hoshana Rabbah, there's something intrinsic about Rosh Chodesh Elul. You ready for this? You ready for this revelation? If you came this morning, you must have davened very well once to be zoicha to hear this, or maybe your grandmother prayed that you should be able to hear this information. Comes Rav Aharon Kotler in the Sefer Mishnahs, Rabbi Aharon, number 17, and he cites the pasuk in Tehillim, L'mishpatecha amdu hayoim, ki hakol avadecha. We have to understand that Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment. And why does David HaMelech say, in judgment they stand today, everyone is your eved? What does judgment have to do with avdos? Why do we become Hashem's avadim through judgment? Says Rav Aharon Kotler, you know, the way God operates upstairs, do you know the principle in the Gemara? The Gemara says, and I'm going to tell you a secret now. If you came now, I can't even tell you. You know the guy who won, I think, the lottery, he won over $1 billion? You're much more fortunate. Okay? I'm telling you, whatever he got, what's he going to do with it? He'll take $1 billion. Okay, he'll buy a bagel. That's $1.50. He'll buy cream cheese. Maybe he'll put locks on it. I mean, what's he going to, maybe sable already? So he'll get a nice breakfast. And then what's he going to do with it? So, then he'll put it in the bank and he'll forget about it. But if you hear this chidush, this is one of the most important chidushim you could hear. The Gemara says, Malchusa d'shmaya ke'im malchusa da'ara. God's judicial system is like the earthly judicial system. And Rav Itzler Petterberg gives the following mashal. The mashal is, let's say, in traffic court. In the beginning of the day, it's good to, if let's say you get a parking violation, it's good to go to court in the beginning of the day. Because then the judge is in a good mood. Why? Because a few people brought him donuts, and he had a good night's sleep the night before, and you might be more likely to get a favorable judgment. By the end of the day, he's in a lousy mood, right? Because his wife called him a few times to tell him that he forgot to take out the garbage, and somebody else told him that he's mamish a shlamazel, that he's in this line of business. By the end of the day, he's in a bad mood. So it's good to get your case in the beginning of the day. By the end of the day, he's dealt with, cops and angry people. Kiviyachal, the Gemara says, if we could say such a thing, the Rebbeinu Shalom works the same way. If you get judged early on, Hashem is, so to speak, in a good mood. Because he didn't have to deal with so many chataim. If you get judged later on, Hashem is, so to speak, in a bad mood. He had to deal with this guy's looking at his phone in the middle of the davening, that guy speaking Lashon Hara, this guy, all kind. So by the time Hashem judged 50 people, he's not in a good mood. Says the Gemara, that's the reason why Hashem judges the king first, so he gets a more favorable judgment. So Rav Itzler Petterberg says from this Gemara we see that God judges us like an earthly court. And the key to a good judgment is getting early on the line. Let's say Saturday night, see, people make a big mistake. That Matzah Shabbos, when Pesach is over, people want to eat pizza. Why do they want to eat pizza then? They went 8 days without pizza. You could go one more day without pizza. They need to eat raw dough with raw cheese that has bacteria on it so they can get food poisoning. No, but it is a mishagas. You have to eat food poisoned pizza Matzah Pesach. Right? Now, if you want to get really the first pizza, the key is to get online early. So people start camping out already Rosh Chodesh Nisan to be the first on the line Matzah Pesach. I saw there's a guy there now. I saw a guy there now on a few days in Chodesh Av. So he could be the first. No, I'm just joking. So he could be the first guy. Somebody thought it was a migrant from Mexico. No, it was a guy camping out to be the first online to get pizza after Pesach. So the key is you want to be early online. No, my son. He likes it. Okay, you want to be early online. So Rabbi Itzler Petterberg says, you know how to get to the line early for Rosh Hashanah? You start preparing in the very beginning of Elul. Right when the shofar blows, you're already revving yourself. You begin to prepare yourself for the court case, because that will put you in an earlier spot on the line, and it will give you a favorable opportunity for a good judgment. But I'm going to tell you, now that's Rabbi Glatstein. My father once showed me a chidush from the Ben La'ashri. Ben La'ashri is the tzaddik Rabbi Yitzchak HaKohen Huberman. By the way, he writes, he never had children, so he writes, if anyone says over Divrei Torah in his name, he will pray for you and bail you out of any troubles in this world and the next world. But this is a gold mine. You ready? He says on the pasuk, "L'shichnoi sidrashu uvansa shama." Literally, seek out the Beis Hamikdash and go there. But he says, "L'shichnoi" can mean the neighbor. He says, why wait till Elul? Seek out Hashem in the neighbor of Elul. That's Av. So right now, today's Sunday. It's the 26th day of Av, 2 days after Yehuda Glatstein's birthday. And thank you. And nobody's preparing for Elul. Everyone's getting revved up to be the first online Rosh Chodesh Elul. So you want to get ahead of them. Already today, you start preparing in Tshuva, so this way all the guys who know Rav Itzla Petterberg, and they're not going to start preparing until Rosh Chodesh Elul, you're going to get ahead of them, and you get a good spot on the line, and it's a good segula for a good judgment, to get on the line early. But the reason why I bring that in is because from here we see a very important principle. The principle is, the heavenly court works like the earthly court. And therefore, in the earthly court, when a person has to go to court, before you go to court, there's always a summons. And actually, psychologically, once the day they go to court, they're nervous. You know when they're most nervous? When they open up the mailbox, and the summons is in the mailbox. There's certain addresses that you don't like to see on the mail. Right? And if you're an accountant, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you're not an accountant, you also know exactly what I'm talking about. There's certain addresses that you don't like to see on the envelope. So if God deals with us like an earthly court, and there's a judgment on Rosh Hashanah, when does the summons come in the mailbox? It says of Aharon Kotler, the summons comes Rosh Chodesh Elul. And therefore, in a sense, Rosh Chodesh Elul is the most fearsome day on the Jewish calendar. And this is not only the Chiddush of Rav Aharon Kotler. I found this in a Rishon. Maybe I saw this in the Sefer of Rabbi Rucham Olshan. The Leket Yosher was written by the Chumash Hadeshen, Rabbi Yisrael Isserlin. He says that we know that... look at number 19. I want you to see the words. Nachzar l'tshuva. Let's return to the subject of tshuva. Merosh chodesh elul ve'elach yaschil bezrizus u'v'zehiros. Ki az lamid yoim koydem yoim hadin zman bezdin lamid yoim. Bezdin always gives a 30-day warning. So when do you get the summons in the mail? Pal, get your act together. You're going to be scrutinized. Your record is going to be looked at very carefully. When does the envelope come in the mail? Rosh Chodesh Elul. That's powerful imagery. That's very powerful imagery. Rosh Chodesh Elul is the summons. We read on every Ta'anis, Dirshu Hashem b'hi matzai, seek out God when He is found, kira'uhu, call out to Him, b'yoisei karov, when He's close. We know the Gemara. The Gemara says, seek out Hashem when He is found. When is Hashem found? What days of the year is Hashem found? Asar Simei Tshuva, the Gemara says, right? Dirshu Hashem b'hi matzai. You're good. But the Gemara says, Dirshu Hashem b'hi matzai, seek out Hashem when He's found. Asar Simei Tshuva. Normally, you need a minyan, Asar Simei Tshuva, even to an individual. But then the pasuk says, the pasuk continues, but call out when he's close. Not just when he's found, when he's close. When is Hashem coming closer? The Panim Yafais. That's Reb Pinchas Horowitz. Reb Pinchas Horowitz was the Rebbe of the Chassam Sofer, one of the earliest masters of Chasidus. He became close to Chasidus. He was a Goyin Otzam. He was a Rebbe Chassam Sofer. If you look carefully in the writings of the Chassam Sofer, I once heard this from Rabbi Isaac Obam, you'll see Chidushim that come from Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Barditchev. There are Chidushim in Chassam Sofer that are not found anywhere but Rabbi Levi. So how does the Chassam Sofer didn't learn from Rabbi Levi Yitzchak. He learned from the Hafla. And the Hafla was a Talmud of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak. So you see some of the thoughts of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak in the writings of Chassam. Be it as it may, the Hafla writes, Dirshu Hashem b'himatzai, seek out Hashem when He's found. That's Aser Simei Tshuva. But we're encouraged, call out to Him when He's close. When is Hashem close? Even before Aser Simei Tshuva, that's in the days of Elul. So now we understand, says Rabbi Yerucham Oshen, that Elul is not just a time of Yira because Rosh Hashanah is approaching. It's a time of Yira inherently. Because the same way Rosh Hashanah is a day of judgment, Rosh Chodesh Elul is the summons. And there's something frightening about a summons. And let's end off with the important principle of the Taz. That we know we don't say Hallel on Rosh Hashanah because the books of the living and the dead are open. How can you say Hallel? Says the Taz, but what do you mean? We're confident that Hashem will give us a good judgment. Says the Taz, even though we're confident, we are still afraid. And the merit of being afraid is the zchus to be zoicha to a good din. It's a very big zechus to have yira of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So too, on Elul, the fear that we have that motivates us to upgrade our level of accountability is a very big zechus to have a good judgment. So, some people want to know, what's the difference between fear and anxiety? Because anxiety is a bad thing. The difference is whether it motivates you to do more or it motivates you to do less. If it upgrades your level of accountability, that's a healthy Yirah Shamayim. If it causes you to forget it, that's anxiety. That's not healthy. So, but a good dose. Now, nobody likes to talk about Yirah. Everybody likes to talk about all the fluffy stuff. But the meat and potatoes, the important attitude we need to engender in Chodesh Elul is a healthy dose of Yirah Shamayim, and that's the greatest chus. And Be'ez Hashem will all be zoicha to elevate our Yirah, and during Elul we elevate our Ahava, because Ani l'doidi v'doidi li, and we should all be zoicha Be'ez Hashem to a shnas, bracha, v'hatzlacha, ubrios, v'nachas, lanu l'chol Yisrael, amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.